By the end of this video, you should be able to know the technique on how to solder gold-filled jewelry by making these earrings. For you who are not familiar with gold-filled is a composite metal with a thin layer of gold mechanically bonded to a base metal. It is more durable and cost-effective than solid gold while providing a similar gold appearance. Hello everyone, I am C from CVG Studio Diaries. Now, you're going to ask how to work with this material though. Well, it's very common to use gold-filled jewelry is in wire wrap. The layer of gold in gold-filled is at least 5% from the core. So you can also perform a soldering work on this material. But okay, there are precautions to be taken here. Since Goldfield is very delicate and requires extra care, every small will leave visible marks. So you have to be very gentle when bending or working with it. Another characteristic of Goldfield, it is heat sensitive. Since we know that it can be soldered, so this information is contradicting, right? Actually, not really, because it's a precautions to know that too much heat can actually burn away the gold bonded and cause the brass core to appear. It happened to me one time, a lot of time. This is why I'm sharing you this information. So, guys, in summary, when you play with gold fill, you can put away your sandpaper, and you have to be very extra careful when forging the wire and don't point the fire for too long. Okay, now that we know more about the characteristic of gold-filled wire, let's craft ourselves a pair of gold-filled earrings. Let's go. For this project, you need the flat nose pliers, round nose pliers, and the flush cutter. On top of that, this three-step plier will come in handy. You also need cross peen hammer, rawhide mallet, and an anvil. The tools for the soldering are a cross-lock tweezer that is mounted on the third hand, a dish with the borax, a serang, consists of easy solder paste, a jar of pickle solution, a torch, a pair of copper tongue, a solder block, a titanium pick, and a pair of tweezer. And this is the material to make the actual hoops. The longer pair are for the circle, the shorter pair are for the pin stud. Take the longest wire, which is the 18 gauge, and make a loop by using the 3-step pliers. It should produce a circle of around 10 millimeters in diameter. And repeat the step on the second one. Take the piece we created earlier and open it up vertically. This way we don't ruin the shape while still able to file the edge flat. And in order to provide a stable support for this task, I'm resting the piece in the V-shaped slot on my bench, which allow me to make smooth back and forth filing motions across the edge without the object shifting around. In order to solder, the piece needs to be very clean and real flat so the both sides can meet without any gap. Let me show you a trick to make the both edge meet without any gap. Take a nail file and slip it in between the two end and start filing. This works for me every time. Okay, this looks great for me. The two edges of the circle are meeting. Before we solder them, we need to create a little bit of a tension between the two sides. This way, when we apply heat from the torch, the wire won't melt and shift to the wrong side. Now I'm going to use a marker to mark a line where the two edges meet. This will show me where to solder because once I apply the flux, it will be very difficult to see the seam. Next, take the shorter wire and also file flat on one side. We're going to solder this into the seam of the circle later. If you are having a trouble filing these tiny wires, then we can use the flat nose pliers to hold the wire while you sand the edge. Just put it in between the pliers like this and start filing. I'm also going to mark the side where it is filed with the Sharpie. Now let's make the borax lure by spraying this dish with water and work on the borax stone. When the dish and the stone grind each other, it produces this sort of slime. Put the pieces that was prepared earlier into the dish and make sure that they are all covered with the slime. This to prevent the fire stain. I'm also getting the pickle solution ready by heating it up on the microwave. Now let's set up the items on the soldering block. Put the circles and the stud wire in perpendicular with each other with the help of third hand cross lock. The cross lock holding the pin. The side that was filed flat earlier needs to face down and it should fall exactly on top of the seam of the circle, like this. There should be a little bit of tension between the pin and the circle. I'm adding this weight to make it more stable. Take the solder serang and apply a little bit on the point where you want to solder. Okay, I'm start firing now. The white buildup you see on the circle is actually the borax flux reacting to the heat. It creates a sort of protective layer around the Goldfilled material to help shield it from the flame. When this layer crumples or flakes off, don't be concerned. That's just the component doing its job of activating and helping the solder flow properly. And since this is an easy solder, it will melt very fast. Aim the torch at the specific area where you want to apply the solder. Unlike when soldering silver, for gold-filled pieces, you should not heat up the entire item. Instead, focus on the heat only on the localized spot that needs to be soldered. After you completed the soldering, you can quench the pieces into the flux solution. Sometimes it is not immediately clear if the solder joints was successful until the pieces have been removed from the pickle bath. Now let's check. This piece, for example, the solder has flown and joined the two components, but there is still a small gap, perhaps about half millimeters, that hasn't been fully filled. In case like this, I may need to go back and resolder the area to ensure a complete seamless connection without any gaps remaining. So I set up exactly like before and make sure that there is slight pressure between the cross-lock tweezer that is holding the stud against the soldering block. Don't forget to flux. And I don't need to reapply the soldering paste since my goal is to remelt the old one, so it can flow all the way to the gap. And normally this will take shorter time than before, but guys, I'm very scared. I'm taking a big risk here. Okay, let's assume that the work is successful. Let's move on to the step 5, which is hammering or hardening. I'm using this ring mandrel that served to make sure the roundness of the front-facing hoops. Just install the circle on the mandrel and hit softly using the Rawhide Mallet. Very soft. Remember, any slight scratch can ruin the Goldfilled. I don't want to try to scare you, but it's better safe than sorry. This looks good. I'm going to measure these hoops using any ruler. The diameter is 13 millimeters. Sometimes it can go 12 millimeters or 14, but since they are handmade, I think we can be okay with it. Next, we're going to hardening the entire piece using the anvil. First, I want to hammer the front-facing section to give the piece a bit of a textured surface. And for the second half pair, I'm going to hammer the hoops using a rawhide mallet, allowing the circular shape of the wire to remain as is without altering the roundness. Also, don't forget to also harden the stud. Hardening the stud component can be very tricky as the wire is quite stubborn. Even if you purchase the wire in a semi-hardened state, going through the soldering and pickling process can easily cause it to become completely soft again. What I like to do is I take a pair of flat nose pliers and twist the pin about 90 degrees. This will instantly harden the wire. The last touch is to file the end of the stud for comfort wear. Put the stud side up against the V-slot and start filing. Now the last step is polishing. Normally I would polish it using a compound, but right now a polishing cloth is enough. Just give it an overall rub to take off the stubborn fire stains if there's any, and this cloth can really shine up the piece. You see? Now you are done. This pair of gold-filled front-facing stud is ready to wear, I think. after polishing the last one here. Now I have a trivia for you. Can you see the difference between the round circle and the hammered one? Here, let me know in the comments. This is the end of the tutorial. I hope that you find my tutorial doable. And if you make some, please tag me. And if you have any other question, please leave me a comment. I have one tip. I don't know if it's too late or not, but for example, if you want to make the gold-filled hoops bigger, then what you can do is you can cut the wire longer. So the one that I have here on the tutorial is 1.6 inches, right? So you can make it 2 inches or 2.5 inches, and it would be bigger, of course. And inversely, if you desire it to be smaller, then you can make it shorter. Thank you so much for watching. If you love my content, I would encourage you to watch the video from last Friday when I made the Goldfilled stackable ring. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and see you soon on the next video. Goodbye!